Hey New Wavers, Nikki Herringshaw here. So, as promised, I am going to teach you a little bit every Friday about pelvic floor. I've coined it Pelvic Floor Friday. And so today I am going to start off by actually showing you and teaching you what the pelvic floor is, what it does, and how to make it work. Okay, so contrary to popular belief, actually men and women have a pelvic floor, not just women. And the purpose of the pelvic floor is to, one, hold your abdominal content in, which is why men definitely need it. Two, it helps to control your bladder and your bowel functions. And three, it has an impact on your ability to have sex and enjoy sex. So what we are going to do is I'm going to show you, be prepared. I'm about to show you a model of the pelvic floor. Obviously it is a lady model, so boys, there's just one less hole that you need to contend with here. So this is the pelvis, and all the red stuff that you're going to see is the pelvic floor. So all of this gubbins in here, which, as you can see, it sort of sits like a bowl, and there you've got your hole for your rectum, and here your hole for vagina and urethra. And rather a graphic one, but there we go. So it sits around the rectum there, and obviously around the vagina and so on. So it's pretty huge, and all these blue bits here are all ligaments. So you can see all the pelvic floor muscles actually join via a ligament onto the coccyx, which is kind of a pretty big deal if you have ever had a coccyx injury where, say, you've gone down heavy and landed on your bum, maybe fallen down the stairs, skiing accidents, fallen off horses, slipped on ice and gone down heavy. That can cause ongoing problems for years, even if it happened in childhood. So kind of worth knowing about. And then you can see again, we've got some ligament, big old fellas on the inside there. And then they all attach up onto the pubic bone at the front here. It's really hard showing on camera. There you go. And all around the pelvic bowl. They have a big impact on this bit here called your sacroiliac joint. And all in all, to be perfectly honest with you, they're pretty much attached to everything that's important in the body. So attached to the good old hip flexors, which you've probably heard lots about. They're attached via this fascial connection to your adductor muscles, so your inner thighs. Because they blend up into the hip flexor, they then actually carry on and blend up into the diaphragm, because the diaphragm actually has legs on it that come down and attach onto your lumbar spine. So that's why breathing and the pelvic floor go hand in hand, and those hip flexors that help to stabilize the spine and create such important movements in the spine and the hip. It all is part and parcel of the same thing. So that's kind of a very rushed thing about where the pelvic floor is. In terms of the bladder, I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to show you this. So this is the bladder, and that sits up into the pelvis like that. Behind that, if you're a lady, you have a uterus and a vagina, and then behind that you have a rectum that sits behind there into there. Now, in terms of how it affects the bladder, is the pelvic floor will contract, and say this is your tailbone, this is your pubic bone. What happens is the pelvic floor moves forward, squashes the urethra, stops you peeing, and then relaxes back off to some degree. Not completely, otherwise you'd be walking around wetting and pooing yourself all the time. The other thing that it does is, if we look at this little model where this is the vagina, this is the rectum, this is the coccyx, so looking down into the pelvis, the pelvic floor slingshots around, this is so hard on camera, slingshots around the rectum like that. And what it does, it creates this little kink. Now, if that kink wasn't there, you'd be pooing yourself all day long. So it's a rather marvelous thing that it is there. But what has to happen is it has to be able to unkink for you to empty your bowels properly. If it doesn't do that, because your pelvic floor is what we call overactive, i.e. on all the time, then you can end up with constipation. This is why every single human on the face of the planet should poo with their feet on a stool, i.e. in a squatting position, because what it does is it helps to unkink the rectum. At this point, I would highly recommend, for a really good laugh, go YouTube Squatty Potty. It's a pooping unicorn. It is very, very funny, but it helps to explain this well. And for those of you with kids, it's a really important point that no child should ever poo with their feet dangling off the loo, because all it does is it helps to keep that rectum kinked and they will become constipated. And on that note, it's a rather subject close to my heart, because I had 2 children that were a bit constipated. That in children, constipation is where poos are enormous, really, really, really long, or they go off and hide to poo if they're doing it in a nappy, or obviously if there's any pain. And poo in a child should be a bit like a soft scoop ice cream. It should be soft, it shouldn't be hard, and definitely should never be lumpy. And that's true of all people. It should never be hard lumps. It should just be a nice smooth log. I love talking about poo all day long. Anyway, moving on. So how do you make your pelvic floor work? Well, what you need to do is you need to get it in good timing with your breathing. So what you would do is you'd take a breath in to prepare. As you exhale, you'd first of all start, so you're going to go from the back to the front. You'd lift up through your back passage like you're trying to hold in wind. And then for ladies, you carry on and you'd lift up through the vagina like you're trying to hold in a tampon. And for guys, it's like trying to lift up your balls. And then you carry on that lift like up behind your pubic bone. So it's kind of like going up a skateboard ramp. So as you exhale, lift through the rectum, up through the vagina or through the balls, and then up behind the pubic bone. And then as you breathe in, you let it relax all the way back down. And it's that relaxation phase and feeling it go back down that's actually really, really important, because most CrossFitters, kind of in the air, have an overactive pelvic floor, which means if this is, like I said, your coccyx and this is your pubic bone, rather than moving forwards and up like this and having this full range of motion, what happens is it kind of starts here. And so if it can still function, it will move forward, squash your urethra, and then come back off, but it won't fully relax off. So you might be more constipated, more prone to back pain, groin pain, hip pain, pain during sex. What we need to be able to do is feel that relaxation phase, and that can be quite hard to get your head around. And you might not feel much movement at all to begin with, and that's okay. This is where coming to see a physio is handy, because I can tell you whether it's overactive or underactive and so on and so forth. So try it with me now. Take a breath in to prepare. As you exhale, lift up through your back passage, up through your vagina or your balls, behind your pubic bone, and then as you inhale, relaxing it back off. Okay, so that is how you should lift the pelvic floor. Now, we find 75% of women do their pelvic floor incorrectly in terms of with the breath. They tend to let go on the exhale because they go, and they think that's letting go. But actually what happens is, because as your diaphragm moves down to let air in, that's when your pelvic floor relaxes and goes down. And as you exhale to push the air out, that's when your pelvic floor lifts. So they should always be working as a reflection of each other, and it creates this pump, which is really essential for keeping the pressure the same in the lungs, the abdomen, and the pelvis. And I'm going to get onto that more next time, because that's more getting into the realms of hernias and prolapses. So for the time being, pelvic floor, really important, holds everything in, stops you peeing and pooing yourself, gives you better sex, better orgasms, and you need to know how to use it in relation to your breath. So inhale is the relaxation phase, exhale is the lifting phase. Move from the back to the front, and then importantly, feel if you can let it go again. Okay, so that's your first taster into pelvic floor, and I will try not to talk about poo too much, but no guarantees. All right, take care, and I will see you again next Friday.